Sourdough sandwich loaf made easy. This is a long ferment, but it is easy to do. Made from ingredients right in your pantry now, and the results are amazing. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. I just want to thank all my old subscribers and welcome my new subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos. Today I am making my sourdough sandwich loaf. Now when I first started making sourdough 2 years ago, I started my sourdough starter. And my family did not like the taste of the traditional artisan sourdough bread. So I had to find a way to incorporate those good sourdough attributes into something that they would like. So I set out trying to find a recipe that my family would like and that I could make pretty easily if I needed to make a sandwich loaf. So that's what I did. It was a lot of trial and error, but I think in the end, I found something that my family enjoys and it's easy to make. So this is my sourdough starter. I started this 2 years ago, right before everything went to pot. So this was a great thing to have when I couldn't find yeast, commercial yeast in the stores. So for this recipe, I'm going to need 65 grams. And I have a kitchen scale here with my glass bowl on the top. And I hate this scale with a passion. I really do. I can't put my big bowl in here that I make the final product in because it says it's over the weight and it won't. Even if I zero it out really quickly, it still won't work. It shuts off. So I have to use a smaller bowl, but this is what I have to do. So I'm gonna get 65 grams of my sourdough starter, and this sourdough starter is fed within the last 12 hours and it's on the way up. It's not discard. It hasn't started to deflate yet. It's still on the way up. If you notice it hasn't come down from its high level yet. So I'm going to measure out 65 grams and get on to the next step. Now that I have the starter I need out of my main batch, I'm going to set it off to the side and I will feed it later on tonight before I go to bed. So now I want to measure out my milk. I'm going to use part of my home condensed milk, and then I'm going to use some warm water. And I do want my milk to be warm. And I need 300 grams of warm milk in total. So part of condensed milk and the rest is going to be water I'm going to add to my condensed home canned milk. So while my milk is warming, I'm going to measure out my sugar. Sometimes I use a combination of vanilla sugar is what you're seeing here. That's what those little specks are, and regular sugar. Sometimes I use all regular sugar. It just depends on what mood I'm feeling in. So today I'm using a combination of vanilla and regular. So now that I have my warm milk measured out, I'm going to add it to my sourdough starter. And I'm going to do a little bit at a time, get it incorporated, and then add the rest of the milk into my starter. So to this mix, I'm going to add my 50 grams of sugar, remembering that my family does not really like the taste of sourdough. So that's where more sugar, I know a lot of people add less sugar than this, but it just helps mask that taste. And once this is all come together and my sugar is dissolved, I'm just going to sit it in a warm place for about a half an hour. And then I'm going to come back to it and finish making my bread. So I'm just going to set this actually in my oven with the light on. This is the warmest place I have in my kitchen. So while my starter mix is sitting in my oven with the light on in that nice cozy area, I'm going to measure out my flour. I need 100 grams of all-purpose flour and 300 grams of bread flour. And I use the King Arthur brand for both my all-purpose flour and my bread flour. So I'm going to get those measured out and into my final mixing bowl. And also I'm going to measure out 9 grams of salt. I use the pink Himalayan sea salt. You can use kosher salt, any other kind of sea salt, table salt, whatever you have. Whatever salt you use, you can use that here. So now that I've got all my dry ingredients, I'm just going to give them a quick whisk. You could do this with a whisk or a fork, whatever you have. This is what I like about this recipe and this method. It's so quick and easy. And then I'm going to just add my liquid right in the center of this dry mix, this flour and salt mixture, right in the center, and get things mixed together. You could do this in a stand mixer if you have one. You don't need one. You could do this very quickly by hand, and that's what I like about it. So I'm just going to mix it here. You might be tempted to add more liquid at this point once you start mixing and you see it's a lot of flour left. At this point, please do not add any more liquid. I know it looks like it needs it, but it will come together. Believe you me, it will come together. All you need to mix it as much as you can and then get your clean hands in there and bring it all together. It comes together very, very easily at this point. So it will take a few minutes to incorporate all this flour into your dough. And once it comes together, this is what it will look like. It will be a little sticky, not really sticky that it sticks to your hands, but a little tacky. And that's what you want, a nice sort of shaggy, not smooth because you haven't kneaded it. And at this point, we are going to let this rest. I'm going to use this same bowl, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little oil in my bowl, and this is so far from the sourdough method that it's just the way I do it, and it works for me. So hopefully it will work for you. So I'm just putting some oil in my bowl. I used olive oil and oiling my dough so it doesn't stick when it starts to rise. And we're going to put it in a nice warm place till it rises. For the first time, I'm going to cover it and put it back in my oven. So it's been about a half an hour. My bread has been in the warm place. This is my version of that slap and fold method. If you want to work some bigger bubbles into your sourdough loaf, that is a traditional characteristic of sourdough, you can. I don't do this because I don't want those bigger holes in my loaf. So it is the next morning. I started this loaf yesterday evening, and here it is the next morning, and this is what it looks like. So at this point, I'm going to take it out, put it on a nice, semi-floured, lightly floured surface, and I'm going to knead it for the first time. So yeah, this is not characteristic of a sourdough loaf either. You don't really knead it. You do that slap and fold method. But I'm going to knead my bread the traditional way. And I haven't leavened it. Other than my sourdough, I haven't put any other commercial leavening in this. So the only thing is in here is that 65 grams of the original sourdough. And I'm just going to knead it for probably about 3 to 5 minutes. And here's what it looks like after I've kneaded it. And this is the first time I've kneaded it in the whole process. The first time I have risen it, it's going to be twice, but the first kneading. And all I do is cover it with a plastic wrap and let it sit on my counter for about a half an hour before the final rolling out and shaping it to put it into the pan. So now I've just turned it over smooth side down onto my counter, and I'm going to work it with my hands. You can use a rolling pin at this point if you want, but I'm just going to roll it out with my hands into approximately a rectangle shape to fit my loaf pan. I am using a Pullman pan for this loaf. So you would have to shape it out to whatever size loaf you are going to be using. And I'm just going to roll it in on itself, doing a pretty tight tuck, and get it rolled all the way till the end. And once I have it rolled up in a log shape, I'm going to pinch my ends closed and making sure I roll in my ends as well. And that's just going to help with the rise, the final rise, when I put it in the pan to rise, and make sure everything's nice and sealed together. So I heard somewhere one time a loaf of bread will rise up and not out. I don't know how true that is, so I'm just helping it by spreading it out, making sure it's touching the sides of the pan. So once I've got it all shaped up to where I like it, I'm going to put my top on it, and that's what I like about this Pullman pan. And then I'm going to put it into my nice warm oven with the light on, and I'm going to put a dishcloth over it just for some added warmth, and I'm going to let it rise to about 1 inch of the height of the pan. As you will see here, it's just about there. I left it a little bit longer to let it rise a bit more before I start baking it off. And here is the final product, baked and ready to go. I will let this cool before I cut into it, and I have a big pot of soup here that I made to go along with it for tonight's dinner, and it is wonderful. As you can see, the inside crumb is nice and tight. There are no exceptionally big holes, and that's what I like, because you don't want things like peanut butter and jam dripping through. So that's it, my sourdough sandwich bread loaf made easy. This is a recipe that I found on Alicia's in the kitchen. I did modify her recipe, and she does the technique a lot different than I do, but this works for me. So I hope you try it. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos.